It was the morning of November 10th, 1979, in the quiet farmland of Caledonia, New York. A local farmer walked out to check his fields just like he did every day. But this time, something stopped him cold. Lying in the grass near Route 332 was the body of a teenage girl. She looked young, 16, maybe 17. Her clothes were soaked from the dew. She had no shoes, no purse, no wallet, no coat. She had been shot once execution style in the back of the head. There was no blood trail, no struggle, just silence. She hadn't died there by accident. Someone brought her here. Someone wanted her to disappear. But this girl, whoever she was, refused to stay buried. At the morgue, the medical examiner worked with what little she had. The girl was white, around 5'3", with light brown hair and freckles across her cheeks. She still had braces on her teeth, fresh ones with the wires intact. Her jeans were worn, her pink shirt faded. Her body showed no signs of sexual assault, but she'd clearly been fed not long before death, likely a burger and fries. Police checked missing persons reports from New York, Pennsylvania, even Canada. Nothing matched. Her dental records were sent nationwide. Still, no one came forward. No friends, no school, no name. The local community gave her one, Caledonia Jane Doe. She was buried with a plain white headstone. One photo was kept, a haunting composite sketch based on her autopsy in case someone someday remembered her. But the calls never came, and she stayed a stranger. Investigators chased every lead they could find. Her clothing, a windbreaker with a zipper, blue jeans, and a pink shirt, was examined for fibers, hair, blood. Nothing useful. She had no jewelry, no tattoo, no identifying scars. Witnesses reported seeing a girl who matched her description the night before at a fast food restaurant in nearby Lima, possibly McDonald's or Burger King. She was talking to an older white man, maybe in his 40s, driving what looked like a tan station wagon or sedan. That man was never identified. At one point, a drifter confessed to the killing, but his timeline fell apart under scrutiny. He wasn't even in the state. Police exhumed her body in 2005, hoping modern DNA could finally help. But even then, no match, no name, just a teenage girl murdered and forgotten, buried in a small town cemetery. Until the science caught up. As the 80s passed, then the 90s, her file gathered dust. Detectives came and went. Some retired, some died, but the girl in the cornfield remained, a face on a flyer, a name no one knew. Her composite sketch hung in police stations, posted on early missing persons websites. Psychics weighed in. Rumors came and went. One caller swore she looked like a girl from New Jersey. Another thought she matched a runaway in Canada. Every tip led nowhere. Even when her body was exhumed in 2005 and DNA extracted from her remains, the national database turned up empty. The grave marker still read unidentified girl. 40 years passed. And then science found a way to speak for her through something that had stayed hidden all along. It all came down to a single truth. In 2014, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children partnered with a lab to re-examine the DNA from Caledonia Jane Doe's remains, this time using a new approach, forensic genealogy. From that tooth, they built a DNA profile and uploaded it to a public genealogy database. That's when things started to move. A distant cousin was flagged, someone living in Florida. Investigators followed the branches of that family tree backward, combing through old records, newspaper clippings, and missing person reports. And then they found a name: Tammy Jo Alexander, a 16-year-old girl who vanished from Brooksville, Florida in the mid-70s and had never been seen again. Tammy Jo Alexander was born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1963. She moved with her family to Brooksville, Florida, a small town with orange groves, quiet streets, and not much for a restless teenager looking for more. By the time she was in her teens, Tammy was struggling. Her home life was rocky. She skipped school. She ran away more than once. But those who knew her said she was sweet, soft spoken, a dreamer. Then, sometime around 1977 or 78, she vanished. Some friends said they thought she'd gone out west. Others assumed she'd just left town. Shockingly, no official missing person report was filed at the time, not by her family, not by police. She simply disappeared. And for nearly 40 years, no one realized she was lying in a cemetery in upstate New York, buried under another name. In January of 2015, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office held a press conference. After nearly 4 decades, the girl found in that cornfield had a name. Caledonia Jane Doe was Tammy Jo Alexander. The DNA confirmed it. The tooth had spoken. For the first time since 1979, her grave had an identity. The unidentified girl now had a story, a history, and a family who finally knew the truth. Tammy's loved ones in Florida were devastated. They'd spent years wondering what happened, and now the answer had come with a quiet ache, too late to save her, but not too late to remember her. And yet, even with a name, one question still hung in the air. Who killed her and why? Tammy was last seen alive in Florida, but she was found over 1,000 miles away in New York. So, how did she get there? Witnesses back in 1979 claimed they saw a girl matching her description at a fast food restaurant near Lima, New York. She was with an unidentified white male, possibly in his 40s, driving a light colored vehicle. Some believe Tammy was hitchhiking, desperate to escape Florida, maybe chasing something better. Others think she trusted the wrong person, someone who offered a ride, someone who had no intention of letting her go. There was speculation about long haul truckers, even whispers of a serial killer operating in the region at the time. But no one has ever been arrested. No charges, no known suspect. The man seen with her that night, whoever he was, has never come forward. And that silence is deafening. That one tooth didn't just give Tammy back her name, it told a story science couldn't have told decades ago. Isotope analysis from the enamel showed the regions where Tammy had likely lived based on water and food she consumed as a child. It pointed straight to the American Southeast, lining up perfectly with her Florida background. The DNA extracted from it was used to build an entire family tree, branch by branch, until investigators reached her. A 16-year-old girl who vanished in the 70s, lost in paperwork, forgotten by police, suddenly reappeared in a high-tech database 40 years later. That tooth, the smallest thing recovered from her remains, became the loudest voice in her case. It spoke with clarity, with science, and with truth. It said, she was here, she mattered, and she has a name. For nearly 40 years, Tammy Jo Alexander was just a face on a composite sketch, a teenager buried in a grave marked unidentified, a case that went cold before most people even knew it existed. But today, she's not a mystery anymore. She has a name, a past, a story. She mattered. Tammy was 16 years old when someone took her life and left her in a cornfield. No family at her funeral, no justice, no answers, just silence and soil. But even silence doesn't last forever, because somewhere in her body, in a single tooth, the truth waited. It waited for science, for technology, for someone who cared enough to look again. And when that moment finally came, her name rose from the ground like a whisper turned into thunder. She's no longer Jane Doe. she's no longer forgotten. And while her killer may still be out there, the world now knows exactly who they took away. When people visit the cemetery in Caledonia now, they don't just see a white gravestone with no name. They see Tammy Jo Alexander. They see a girl who finally came home.